Hello, thank you for joining this month's Connect with Control M session. My name is Trinidad Gaitan, and I'm a technical support analyst for the Control M team at BMC Software. Today, we'll be demonstrating how to manage your alerts in Control M. Our panelists for today are Arthur Yates and Hugo Arguello. We recommend going to full screen mode during this presentation by pressing the full screen button. Please note that this presentation is available via the files pod at the bottom of your screen. For any questions you may have during the presentation, please post them in the Q&A pod, and we'll be addressing your questions at the end of the session. This is our agenda for today's webinar. We'll move straight into the demos, and afterwards we'll provide a brief summary of what we demonstrated. Then we'll show some resources that you can use to reference from the videos, and then we'll move on to a live Q&A session. Let's go ahead and start with our first demo. As a Control M administrator, I need to change the default severity of an alert generated by a job failure because the default value of very urgent does not apply to all jobs. Whenever a job ends not okay, an alert is automatically generated by the gateway. The default value for the severity of this alert is very urgent. This may not apply to all jobs that you have in your environment, and you may need to change it. Let's go to the client and see how this can be done. Here I have a job named demo job 1. This job is just running a hostname command. The command is spelled incorrectly, so that way it will fail in the operating system, and this will cause the job to end not okay. I do want to show the Actions tab. It's currently empty right now. This is a default configuration that comes with the job. Same thing for prerequisites and scheduling. Now let's go ahead and order this job so we can see it fail. So we'll hit order up here, and then order again in the window that appears. We'll hit done to close this, and let's go to the monitoring domain and check out what this job is doing. So we can tell by the color that it did end not okay, which means an alert should have been generated for this job. So let's go check the alerts out. To get there, once you're in the monitoring domain, you can hit this plus sign to open a new tab. And then up here in the home ribbon, you can hit the alerts button. By default, the most recent alerts are located at the bottom. There is the option to organize this by the columns, and we can organize it by time as well. So I've already selected this, so let me actually scroll back to the top. And these are our most recent alerts. So here we can see my job, demo job 1, it ended not okay. The severity for this alert is very urgent, and this is default for all jobs. This default value can be changed by updating an Enterprise Manager system parameter. So let's go to the CCM and take a look at this. All right, now that we're in the CCM, let's go to the system parameters. So to get there, you can select the Enterprise Manager component and then hit the system parameters button at the top. This will bring up another window, and in this window, you'll go to Advanced. And here we'll see the system parameters. Now we can use a name column to filter for the parameter we're looking for. The alert name is alert on event urgency. So the default value is very urgent, which means that any alert generated by a job failure will be very urgent. We can either change this to just urgent or to regular. And I'll use regular for the demo. I do want to point out that the refresh type for this parameter is manual, which means that a component will need to be recycled. And this type of parameter is a GTW parameter or gateway. So we're going to be recycling the gateway for this to take effect. So my job is currently running on the Control M server named Trinidad. So I'm going to find the gateway with the same name and then go to desired state, right click, go to desired state, and then select recycle. Now, I do want to point out that the parameter does affect all jobs across all your Control M servers. Once the parameter is updated, it won't affect the jobs until the gateway is recycled. If you have multiple Control M servers, you'll need to recycle all the gateways. So, for example, I have a Control M server here named Remote Lab. The parameter won't affect the jobs on this Control M server until I recycle the gateway for this Control M server. And looks like this is still recycling. While it's recycling, I do want to mention another system parameter. So let's go back to the EM system parameters, advanced, and then we'll use a name column to filter again. And the parameter I wanted to show is max days alert retained. The default value is 30, which means that for 30 days, the enterprise manager alerts will stay in the enterprise manager for 30 days. If you find that you have too many alerts in your environment, you can lower this number, and the number of days that the alerts will be retained will be less. And this will free up some space in your database if you find that you have too many alerts. And for this refresh type, the type is automatic, which means that once you make the change should take effect automatically without having to recycle any components. All right, let's go ahead and close this. It looks like the gateway just connected. So now let's go back to the WLA client. All right, so let's go back to our job now. We're going to rerun the job, so it'll fail again. So I'll just do right click, rerun, and we'll hit yes. So it looks like the job ended not okay. I do see a window down here that says new alerts added. So now let's go back to the alerts window. And then now if we check this most recent alert, it's for demo job 1. And the message is still ended not okay, but now the severity of the alert is normal. There's still the option to send alerts with a very urgent severity for jobs that require it. So let's go back to the planning domain to show how this is done. I'm going to check out the job again. And now let's go to the Actions tab. We'll add an undo action. And then we'll leave it here on job ended not okay. Do notify destination alerts window. And here for the urgency, we can change this to very urgent. And it does require a message, a text field, so we can put anything that meets your business needs. All right, let's hit OK. And now let's order this job. And we know it's going to fail, so let's just go back to the alerts window. Now we can see for my demo job 1, now the message has changed. This is an important job. And now the severity of the alert is very urgent. Now, if we take a look at the alert that's right after it, we can still see that it sent the default alert that comes with all jobs. There is a way to disable it, so that way the only alert that is sent is from the undo notification. So let's go back to the CCM and I'll show you how to do that via another system parameter. All right, and let's go back to EM, system parameters, advanced, and the parameter that I want to mention is alert on abend. The values can either be 1 or 0. The default value is 1, which means that for any job that ends not okay, it'll send an alert automatically. If you want to disable that behavior, you can change this to a 0 and then save the changes. And the refresh type for this parameter is manual, and you would have to recycle the gateway for that to take effect. Now let's go back to the slides to start our next demo. As a control room administrator, I need to process alerts when they are created so I may notify the correct team to address the issue. In the WLA client, the alert screen does display new alerts as they are created, and you can review them in real time. However, this requires someone to be logged into the client and reviewing these alerts manually. There is a system parameter that you can configure to have the information in these alerts sent to a custom script. Let's go to the CCM and take a look. We'll need to update 2 system parameters in order to send these alerts to a script. These are Enterprise Manager system parameters, so let's go ahead and select the EM component, go to System Parameters, and then Advanced. The first parameter is send SNMP. Valid values for this parameter are 0, 1, or 2. Value of 0 means these alerts are only sent via SNMP if you have that set up in your environment. A value of 1 means these alerts are only sent to your custom script, and a value of 2 means that these alerts will be sent to both. If you're already sending SNMP traps for the alerts and you also want to send them to a script, then you should use a value of 2. For this demo, I only want to send my alerts to a script, so I'll use a value of 1. Let's go ahead and close this. This is a general type parameter, and the refresh type is manual. In order for this to take effect, it does require that you recycle the gateway for each control M server. And let's go ahead and take a look at the next parameter. Send alarm to script. The value of this parameter will be the full path and name of the script that you want to run. In my environment, I've created a specific directory for this. The home EM user CTM underscore EM is the enterprise manager's home directory. And then I created a directory named alarm to script. And then the name of my script is alarm2script.sh. Let's go ahead and close this. This is the same type of parameter and the same refresh as well. It also requires a recycle of the gateway for this to take effect. I already recycled the gateway in my lab, so let's go ahead and take a look at the script I have. Here's my enterprise manager machine. Let's check the current working directory. We'll run the pwd command. My current directory is alarm2script. This is a directory I created under my enterprise manager home. And let's take a look at the permissions of the files in here. Here you'll see my script alarm2script.sh. You'll want to make sure the enterprise manager user has access to the script and that the script also has execute permissions. So currently my file is owned by the enterprise manager user and the permissions are 750. This will allow the user to access the file and run the script when needed. And let's take a quick look at the content of the script. It is pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. It's just running an echo command and it's echoing the content of the alert and it's appending it to this text file, alerts.txt. And let's go ahead and follow this text file in real time to see if anything's added to it. We can run the tail-f command. These alerts were here previously. I just want to point out some fields you might find helpful. It does come with the alert ID, the order ID of the job that failed, the severity of the alert. Here we can see it's an R for regular, or it can also be V for very urgent. It comes with the message as well, ended not okay, which is the message that comes with default alerts. It can be modified if you need to, as I showed in my last demo. You can see here, this one says message, this is an important job. Now I'm going to generate another job failure in my lab and we'll see that content will be added to this. So let's go back to the client. All right, and we're just going to rerun this job from earlier. And it did fail as expected. I do want to point out that no matter what value you have for the send SNMP parameter, the alerts will still be sent to the alert window. And here we can see two new alerts that were generated from this job now. The alert ID for this is 17048 and 17047. So let's go back to the text file. All right, and we look at the newest alerts. We can see that the alert IDs that I pointed out, 17047 and 17048. I mentioned earlier that my script is very simple. It's pretty straightforward. You'll need to work with your team to customize your script so that it meets your business needs. For example, you can take this information in the alert and perhaps notify the correct individual if they need to be notified of the job failure. Or you can also send this information to an external ticketing system to generate an incident. And this does lead into my next demo where we can use automation API to update alerts with information such as that incident number. So now let's go back to the slides to start the next demo. As a control M administrator, I need to be able to update the alert status and add notes to reflect the ticket number for my internal ticketing system. Adding notes to an alert is something that you can currently do while logged into the client. There is a notes field that you can update with text, and there are also other actions you can take with the alert as well. So let's go to the client and take a look at this. So here are the alerts of my client. We'll select the top alert for demonstration purposes. So here's the notes field that I mentioned earlier. You can populate this simply by typing text into here. And then you can also update the severity of the alert if you need to change it for whatever reason. So you can either change it to urgent or very urgent. And now for these changes to take effect, you do need to hit the Save Changes button. If you navigate to another alert, you will get the option to do you want to save your changes, and if you hit no, it will revert back. So let's go ahead and put this back in. We'll save this. And now the changes stayed. And there are some other buttons that you can use to interact with these alerts. So here in the alerts ribbon, we do see the buttons read, unread, handle, or unhandle. Basically, this changes the status of the alert. Right now, by default, they are all unread until they're addressed by somebody. So you might have your own best practices for how this is done, but basically, if you hit the read button or the red, it changes the status to red. We do get a confirmation window. Do you want to update alert details? And we'll hit yes, but I'm gonna hit this checkbox not to show it again. And then if you need to undo this change, then you can just hit unread and it'll change back to unread status. And then same thing for handled. If you hit the handle button, the status will change to handled, and this also changes the status to red. And then unhandle will just revert this change, but it'll still show as red. So then we can hit unread to show it, make it look new again. Now, all these actions that I just showed can be performed via automation API using the run service. So let's take a look at the documentation for this so I can go over it with you guys really quick. So here's the main documentation page for Control M. To find the automation API documentation, you just have to scroll down a little bit and you always want to select the dynamic monthly version. The link right here, this will have the latest documentation we have for API. And then once we get here, we'll go to services and it'll show the different services that are available from our API. And the one that we're interested in is the run service. And then the alert will be, the documentation for the alert will be at the very end, at least for now. So here's a documentation page for the API and alert management. There's two commands that we have available here on the right side of the page. You'll see run alerts update and then run alerts status update. So we'll go over the first one, run alerts update. And this updates the basic properties of alerts, including the urgency and the comments. So this is the part of the alert where you can type into the text field and then change the urgency of the alert, the severity, and then you hit save changes. So that's what this command is for. It does require a configuration file for running this command, and then this is an example of how this configuration file looks down here. You have the alert IDs with the alert IDs you want to update, and then it says urgency, which is the severity of the alert, and then you have the comment, which is the notes field of the alert, and then for the urgency, these are the valid values that you can have. And now let's take a look at the next command, which is run alert status update. This is similar to hitting either the read or the red button and the handle or unhandle. So this one is a little bit different. CTM run alerts status update, and then you put the alert IDs, or you can also just put the configuration file with -f. And then here's an example of the configuration file. It's pretty straightforward. It's a little bit shorter than the last one. You have the alert IDs, and then you have the status that you want to change the alert to. And then these are the current values that are available for status. I do want to mention one more thing about these API commands. Here in the documentation, if we scroll up a little bit, back to the alert management section, we do see a version associated here, 9.20.105. So this requires that the API be at least at this version in order to use these in order to use run alerts update and run alert status update. Okay, and now let's take a look at my lab so we can see this commands be run in real time, and then we'll see the alerts updated as we run them. Before running these commands, I do want to point out that in order to run them, you need to run them on a machine where the CLI is installed. I'm running these on my Enterprise Manager, and it comes with the CLI installed by default, but you can run these commands on any machine where the CLI is installed. And then once the CLI is installed, you do want to make sure that it's configured to connect to your environment. So I'll show that in my lab really quick. I'll just do CTM env or environment show. And I have a few environments listed. The first one is, or the current environment is prod env. And here we can see I just have my user and endpoint defined. All right, and now let's go ahead and run the commands that we'll be demonstrating. I do want to show my client real quick just to show the current status of the alerts. Currently, all the severity on the alerts are normal except for this very first one. They're all unread and the notes are currently empty for them except for the very first one, which is test. So now let's go back to the lab and run the API commands. So we're going to be using a few configuration files for this. So let's go and take a look at them. I'm just going to run a cat command on them. I'm going to run it on all three since they're pretty short. So we can see there's the alert IDs. I do have a couple of them. I do have more than one in a couple of these files. The first one just changes the urgency to normal, and then it's adding a comment that says incident 123. So this would be an example of you putting your incident number from your internal ticketing system. And then we have urgent, and then we have critical. So normal will change the urgency of the alert to regular. That's how it will show in the client. Urgent will show the severity as urgent, and then critical will update the alert to a very critical or very urgent. I'm sorry. So now let's go ahead and run the command to update these alerts. Here is us running the normal.json. So it's just ctm run alerts : update -f and then normal.json. And then we see the output, the alert was successfully modified. And let's go ahead and run the other two as well. And now let's go back to the client. So here are the alerts again. We can see that there have been several changes. If you recall, the very first one had a severity of very urgent, and the notes field said test. So now we can see that the severity is normal, and the notes field was updated with the incident number. And as you can see in the JSON file, I had this set to regular, and this will change the severity to normal. And then we can see some alerts further down that were also updated. This one was changed to urgent, and in the JSON file, the parameter used or the value used was urgent. And then for very urgent, we had to use critical in that JSON file. Let's go back to the lab and run some of the other API commands to update some other properties of the alerts. Let's take a look at the next files that we'll be using, the configuration files. So I'm gonna go ahead and cat them again, and we have 3 to work with. So the first one is reviewed.json. We can see I'm just updating the status to reviewed. The next one is closed.json. I'm just updating the status to closed. And then for the last one, I'm updating it to new. I am using the same alert IDs between these 3 files, so we're going to be running these one at a time and then going back to the client. So let's run the first command, which I'm going to do is reviewed. Looks like this alert was successfully modified, so let's go back to the client. And here we are back at the client. We can see in the status column that 2 alerts were updated from unread to read. And this was the result of using reviewed in the JSON file for the status. Let's go back to the client again. The next one we'll run is closed. We'll see the output. The alert was successfully modified. And now we take a look at the same alerts. We can see now that it says handled on these. And then for the last one, we'll be running new, the new.json file. And we can see after running the new.json file that the status has changed back to unread, which is the default when the alert is created. And that concludes this last demo. And we'll move on to the next demo where we'll learn how to use control M reports to run a report that contains alert information. As a control M administrator, I need to generate a report on all alerts so that I may review overall job failures and share this information with my team. To generate the report, we'll be using control M reports, which is accessible via control M web. So let's go to our browser and log in. Here's the welcome page for control M web. The URL I used to get here is up here at the top. It's https:// the host name of my enterprise manager, followed by the SSL port that the web server listens on. You'll want to check with your control M admin about the URL you should use. It might be a little bit different if you have a load balancer in your environment. So just ask them and they'll provide you the URL. So let's go and log into control M web. We'll go ahead and select this icon here. It'll open up another tab. And now we'll go ahead and log in. All right, and to get to control M report, we'll go to tools up here at the top and then down to reports. So if you already have a report created, it'll show up here under my reports. You can see I have CWCM alerts. I'll show you how to add a new report first. So in order to do that, you'll hit this plus report button, and then you'll select add new report. And the template we want is an active template. It'll show up under the active tab. So if this isn't expanded, just select the drop down arrow and it'll come up. And then the first one, we want the first one, which is alerts. So we'll select that and then we'll hit add. And it'll come with the default name. If you want to change it, you can just click in here and then type. Same thing for the description below. And then once you modify the columns you want to be in this report and the filters you want to be used, you'll hit the save button and it'll save the report and it'll show up here every time you log in. But for now, I'll go back to the template that I have created already. So I'm just going to come over here and since I didn't hit save, it's prompting me now and I'm going to hit don't save to delete it. So I want to show you the columns I've selected first. I have selected some columns to show the same information that you would see in the client, such as the alert ID, status, the notes, or the order ID. And then there are more columns here you can choose from. You can add whichever ones you'd like, whichever meets your business needs. So I'm just going to generate the report. And if you're creating this report for the first time, you'll have to save it first and then hit generate. But let's go ahead and do that now. So I'll hit generate. And you can either select PDF, CSV, or Excel, and we'll just go with PDF. And it'll download automatically. And here's the report name. And as you can see, it has the columns that were in the control M reports that I noted. So let's go back to the report. I want to show some other options that are available in the filters tab. So the first one that you see here is a time range. Anytime is the same as all time. You can either do custom, which gives you a date range. Last, which is the last several days. Or a previous month. And I'll just change it back to anytime for now. And then there are some filters down here. We hit the add filter button. I'm just going to use the drop down here. We do see some basic filters like application, job name, notes, severity. And let's just use a couple of these as an example. So let's use message. We'll use message is ended, not okay. And let's just go ahead and use a preview feature down here. So I'll just expand this by hitting the arrow that was next to the word preview. And then we'll hit refresh. And as we can see now in the message, now in the preview, it only shows alerts where the message says ended not okay. And when typing this out, you do want to make sure that it is case sensitive, so you want to make sure that it matches up. So if I change this to a capital N and then try the filter, it would not find the alerts. All right, let's try one more filter. Let's use severity this time. And then here we can just see there's three options. Severity is normal, urgent, or critical. And normal would be a regular severity, urgent would be urgent, and critical would be very urgent. So let's do critical for now. We'll hit refresh. You can see there's several alerts with a severity of critical. And just to show it, let's go ahead and hit save, and then we'll generate another report. We'll use PDF again. And now it's downloaded. Let's go ahead and open it up. Let's scroll through really quick, and we can see that all these alerts have a critical severity. I do want to go over the view tab as well. It's here on the right side of the report template. So it's going to select that. And here there are options to either to sort by certain parameters, or you can also group, if you're using PDF, you can also group by. So let's go ahead and look at this really quick. We'll use the plus sign here to add a sorting column. And these are the available options we have. And let's go ahead and sort them by alert ID, and then we'll leave it at ascending for now. And then we'll be using a PDF for this example, so let's also use this bottom this bottom section, this group by. So let's add a grouping column. And these are the options we have here. And for now, I'll just group these by my control room server name. All right, let's go ahead and save this and then generate. We'll use PDF. And then here, if we look at the alert ID, we can see they are sorted by that. It's ascending 24, 25, 26, and then they were grouped by my control room server. So here, these alerts are for my control room server remote lab, and these over here are for the control room server Trinidad. All right, let's go back to the report. Now you can set up this report to run on a daily schedule. In order to do this, you'll have to set up an OS type job that runs an API command that will generate the report. We do have a video that shows how to do this, and it'll be linked in the resources section. So if that's something you're interested in, you can go ahead and use that video to set that up. And that concludes our last demo. So let's go ahead and go back to the slides now. And that concludes our demos. Here's a summary of what we did during the demonstrations. We changed the default severity of an alert when it is generated by a job ending not okay. We showed how to send these alerts in real time to a custom script. Afterwards, we used the automation API to show how to update alert properties. And then we ended by using control number reports to generate a report for the alerts. Here are some resources you can use for today's demonstrations. The first two links are links to our documentation for the gateway parameters and general parameters. It'll list several parameters, but you'll find documentation there for alert on event urgency and alert on event and max days alert retained. The third link is a link to a knowledge article about how to send alerts to a script. The link after that is our automation API documentation for alert management. And the last link is a link to a video where we show how to use automation API to generate reports. Thank you for attending this presentation. We hope the information provided is helpful as you manage alerts in your Control M environment. If you're interested in learning more about Control M administrating, follow the links provided in this slide or in the links section. We would like to encourage you to provide your feedback on the webinar in the feedback tab. Please let us know what you thought about the presentation, any topics you may want covered in the future, or any comments and suggestions you may have. You may follow us on social media platforms via Facebook and Twitter. Past BMT webinars can be viewed on BMT Software Control M channel on YouTube. Today's webinar will be posted in a couple of days, and now we'll proceed with the Q&A session.